Oh, sorry. Didn't see it, I was just busy mowing the lawns. Welcome back to another video, and today is a very special video because we're finally back working on the Datsun. It's been a long time coming. This thing has been sitting in the corner collecting dust for a long while now, whilst we've been building things like the E36 and the rotary car and whatnot, but we are back working on this thing and I just couldn't be more excited. Today is a massive learning curve for me and something that I've been kind of dreading but also really excited at the same time doing, and that is wiring in our Haltech Elite ECU. And there's a reason that these two guys are here with me right now, Kwana and Was. You good? I'm good. So these guys are here because I pretty much have no clue what I'm doing. I pretty much spent the last week on the internet watching all of Haltech's videos because they have an insane amount of videos teaching you how to basically wire up a loom for your car, which has been insane. So shout out to Haltech for that. And that is the exact reason that I ended up buying a Haltech, because the customer support for these ECUs are freaking insane. So I'll start with what comes in the box quickly. So here's the box that the Haltech comes in. I've obviously unboxed it already, but I got the Haltech Elite 550. I probably should have got the 750 for this motor because the 750 is better for a 6-cylinder. This only has 4 injector outputs, but we're running our injectors in a batch fire sequence, so this will work perfectly fine for our motor, which is awesome. So look how tiny they are. It's freaking insane. There's a connector here that the loom goes into. Has a map sensor right here. That's where we plug a vacuum line in, and it'll show our ECU that when we're on boost and when we're not on boost. And then it's got a USB port right here as well, which is weatherproof. Boom! So these things are freaking sweet, and when you plug them in to the laptop via just the USB, it powers up the ECU, so you can program the ECU exactly how it is out of the car without having to power it up with the car, which is insane. And then I also got Haltech's basic engine loom that comes with the car. It's a universal loom, and basically all of these wires correlate to everything that's on this very easy to read diagram right here. It's also got this rad connector here, and also a CAN bus here, which you can also run your wideband sensor off, which is super handy. So what do you think of this setup?
It's pretty good. I got the same thing.
You do?
3-meter flying loom.
Yeah, that's right. So much wires for activities, which is awesome. I also went down to GR Motorsport Electrics and bought a whole bunch of this crazy, what is it called?
It's Raycam.
Raycam.
It's heat shrink with glue in it.
That's it, heat shrink with glue in it. And because we're not using any of this kind of meshy stuff here, they recommended we used the Raycam stuff instead. We've got connectors for all of our injectors, all brand new because we didn't want to use the 40-year-old connectors. We've got everything. We've pretty much got everything we need to wire this thing into the car. Now Kwana has been super helpful because our car is running a distributor, and that's really confusing. That's not the distributor, that's the vacuum advance. Here's the distributor. And we've had to do some wizardry because basically these are old school technology. They're in the car, they've got a reluctor sensor in them, and we have to basically show the ECU what signal is coming from the reluctor sensor. Yep. And then these also want to advance themselves, advance the timing when we're on throttle, because they have a mechanical advance in them, and they also have a vacuum advance in them, which basically means when it sees vacuum, it'll advance the timing, and when it's basically, you put your foot down, this will spin real fast. It has weights in it that pull out when it's rotating at a certain speed, and that'll advance the timing as well. Yep. And so we had to delete all that because we don't want to be driving under boost and having that advance our timing, as well as the ECU trying to figure out what's going on. Yep. Did I do it right? Yeah. He's like, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about, which is mad. So close enough. Honestly, if I didn't have Kwana here, I wouldn't have a freaking clue. So this was the scariest part. I didn't really want to touch it. And he just rocked up, pulled it out, and started doing it himself. So thank you very much. He also drives a SR20 DET S13. Yep. That makes more power than my car. Yeah, boy. Is this done now?
Nearly.
Nearly done. So we're going to put that back in the car. I'm just leaving that there because I don't know what's going on there. But also we have our fuel setup. So went down to Autobahn Clayton. Shout out to Autobahn Clayton, they hooked me up. Got a fuel pressure regulator that's going to go on the back firewall. We also have our GDR injectors here that I've cleaned up nicely. They're just sitting there at the moment. They need to go on our stock rail that we've modified. So the GDR injectors are going to go on the rail, and then we're going to have the fuel pressure regulator, and then it's very simple, and then we're just going to run that to the stock fuel lines, and then we have to wire up all of our sensors. It's just so crazy. Got brand new belts, everything good to go. It might seem confusing right now, but we'll go through it obviously as we get it done in the video. But man, I'm out of breath talking. Basically what we have to do to start with though is we have to separate the loom into the sections, which Quana's already kind of done, that we're going to use, and then everything we're not going to use, which is quite a bit actually, because this setup is so simple. And then we start kind of mocking it up in the car, and then cutting things, and then splicing things, and connecting things, and it's all very confusing, if you ask me. But we're here, and we're going to get this done, and we're going to hear this thing run for the first time with its beautiful Elijah fabbed up exhaust, which I haven't even heard this thing yet, so it's going to be very exciting. But we've got a long way to go yet, as you can see, with all the random crap sitting in the engine bay. So let's get started on the wiring. So while Quana is doing some magical stuff with Dr. Drift on the phone, on the laptop with the Haltech, I'm going to put the fuel system together. So we're going to mount our injectors onto our rail, and then we're going to mount our fuel pressure regulator on the back firewall and just make sure that that's all tidy and good to go. I've been given the novice jobs while the big boys do the bigger jobs, but I'm kind of fine with that. So we'll get these GDR injectors mounted and then kind of throw it all together. I'm getting excited, this is so good. Alright, quick break from my fuel system setup because Quana has done some wizardry here on the bench. So what we've got the battery with these amazing clamps holding the power wires for our ECU, and as you can see it's powered up, which is nice, the green light's on. And then we have our Dizzy here. So this is, as I said before, a bit of a complicated setup. The distributor, it's electronic. We had to remove a couple of things, lock the Dizzy, and then it's got the reluctor sensor in there with the 2 wires coming out of here, and they're going into the ECU, and we've got the computer set up here with the Haltech software. And our plan to make sure that this distributor was actually going to work, this is Quana's idea, not mine, is to
spin it up with a drill.
Spin it up with a drill, and the RPM should come up on the screen if we've got it right. So Quana, you can do we've tested it already, so we know, but I want to show you guys. So we've got the drill, goes in the bottom of the distributor, spins it up, and look at that. Boom! That is so exciting. So that means that our distributor is in fact going to work with our Haltech.
Yep.
And we should be able to see spark when we put it all together.
Should do.
And we're using an LS coil as well, which is going to be fun, but we'll show you guys when we wire that up. But success, that was the biggest mission that we had, was to figure out if our distributor reluctor sensor was going to work with the Haltech, and it is. So it means that we're going to be able to control ignition as well as fuel and get a really nice tune out of this thing when we take it to Dr. Drift.
Yep.
Also shout out Dr. Drift for being on the other end of the phone and helping us out here as well. So happy Mike, happy Quana, happy life. Let's go! Alright, moving on. Back to the fuel system. Got to finish it off. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, mostly gentlemen, the fuel system is in, so the injectors are in. Oh, they've even got their power wires. Look at this, Quana's done a sick job. We've got brand new connectors on all of the injectors, which is super sick. And we've got our fuel pressure regulator here nicely mounted to the rear firewall, running out the back of the fuel rail, so it's sick. And then we've got our fuel in, but it's just sitting here at the moment because we've got a bunch of changes we still need to make. And we just need to finalize where we're going to route the fuel hoses, because we have a dump pipe around the back here, and we just need to make sure we keep everything nice and clear of that, because fuel and heat obviously don't go together well. There's a bunch of other things we're looking at doing as well, like this is the master cylinder for the clutch, and as you can see the line's super close to the dump pipe. So there's a couple of options there that we can do. Maybe we'll get a smaller master, but we can also get maybe perhaps a banjo fitting that 90's off here and goes backwards this way instead. So it's just about overcoming obstacles with this custom stuff that we have on the car. But now Quana's in the car, he's in a fun awkward position, and he is routing the wiring at the moment that's going to come through our firewall. Was mounted our ECU, I'm going to show you that in a second. It's super neat and tidy, which I'm very thankful for, so thank you, Was.
No worries.
We supply him with beers, he supplies us with his great workmanship. Look at that, our wires are coming through the firewall. So right now we're testing all the lengths that we need for the wires. That's it there? Yep. Sweet. I'll show you guys under here. So Was has mounted our ECU beautifully here on a plate, which is just freaking sick, and that gets covered by a cover that goes under the footwell, which is cool. So it's going to be super neat and tidy. All these wires here are wires that we potentially won't be using, which is crazy, but because our L28 setup is so simple, very basic, we probably won't need it. We're getting fancy. We're doing fancy work, guys. It's very unusual for us on this channel.
We're getting better.
We are getting better. I'm happy. Look at this. It looks freaking crazy.
New plugs, new wires.
Look at the sparkle in this engine bay, guys. It's so dirty at the moment as well. Once we clean it up, it's going to come up so nice. While we're working on things, I'll show you guys a quick update on the E36. So this is what happened to the E36. We literally ripped the diff mounting point off the subframe. And we smashed an axle, but luckily this axle is actually fixable because I have another end to go on here. Circlip just unclips right here. Take that off and we put another end on, and that axle will actually be good to go. So we'll use that as a spare. We'll chuck a nice new one in. So we've got to pull the diff out, which we won't do today obviously, we'll do another day. We've got Vic Drift round 1 coming up in 3 weeks. Pull this diff out. We're going to weld and reinforce the subframe. We should put a new one in, but we pretty much don't have time with everything I've got going on over the next couple of weeks. So we'll literally just get it back to good, weld it up. It'll be stronger than ever. I've got solid bushings to go on this diff, and then throw it all back together, and she should be bloody good to go, which is sick. So just a bit of an E36 update there for you guys. Update time, ladies and gentlemen. So we've got the battery positioned where we think it's going to sit. So we're using a smaller battery mounted this way because I'm going to have a catch can sitting right here. That's this bad boy over here. I'll show you guys quickly so you can get a quick idea of how it's going to kind of sit. So this will be sitting in here. Battery, catch can, engine. So quite a tidy, tight wee setup. We have deleted anything we didn't need from this side of the car from the old engine loom. We still had a couple of things left, so that's all gone. And we now have the Haltech loom sitting here. Basically, Quana's splitting it up to where the wires are going to sit for their sensors, basically. So TPS, for example, is here. The wires are now sitting next to the TPS. We have ECU power and ground here because they're next to the battery where they're going to run. We've got a relay that we've installed right here, a brand new nice wee relay that's going to power our ECU, our injectors, and our coil as well. And then, yeah, we've got our 6 injectors which are running in a batch fire sequence like I mentioned. So we'll have 3 signal wires going to those, and they'll split out, and 1 will go to 2. So that equals 6. And we've got our temp sensor, our inlet temp sensor, and our dizzy, and that's it. That's the whole setup, which is pretty cool. Uncomplicated, kind of. Sort of enough. But it's so cool seeing everything come together. All the fuel setup just looks so good. So slowly but surely, we're making progress. What's next? What's the next step?
Run the injector wires through. I forgot to put through the grommet.
You forgot to put them through. Nice. There's always something. At least it's not difficult to run it through because we haven't placed put the actual grommet through in the firewall yet, so not too bad. Alrighty, it is day 2 of the Haltech wiring and the Datsun, and we are making massive moves. We should probably have this thing started today if all goes to plan, which is super exciting. Currently Quana is doing all of the lengths of the wires, and we're cutting them 2 lengths basically. So we've made some cuts, which is super nerve-wracking for me because this is all very expensive gear and we want to make sure that we get it absolutely perfect because there's no second chances with this stuff. So yeah, just getting it all good. And then I am not touching the wiring currently because if I do, something will explode. So I'm working on just finalizing the fuel system and making sure that everything is out of the way of our dump pipe over here. But all in all, we're making amazing progress. Next up, after that, we're going to heat shrink all of the loom and then run it back through, terminate it with the connectors. That basically means just adding the connectors onto the end of the wires. And then we should have some kind of we should be able to maybe start it. Oh, we've got to test the timing with the, and we're running a BMW coil today because we don't have our LS coil, so that's just going to be used as our tester. to basically see if we can get this thing to run, which is really exciting. So stay tuned. Fingers crossed that we get some Datsun noises going today. So this, out of everything we got, is everything we're using for the Haltech, because we got a basic birch setup. You're basic. That's what you are, mate. You're basic. But yeah, keen. That's awesome. It's kind of funny, huh? Just how simple it is. Like, it's not simple because this is blowing my mind, but it is simple when you know what you're doing.
Pretty much.
Which is you, not me. You. The big man, look at this. Loom is part of the way there. This sheathing stuff's pretty cool. Quana prefers this stuff, I think, don't you?
Yeah.
But I like this. I think it looks tight. It's gonna look super tidy. But this right here is just everything for our loom, which is cool. So now we're threading it through the engine bay for the last time.
Yep.
You.
Final fitted in the car as well.
That's mint. And we've got a grommet here. We just stole the one from the stock loom because we know it fits and it's in good condition, so no worries. That's dope.
Yeah, get it in and see how it fits.
Yeah, boy. Alright, you chuck it through. I've also just thrown the bolts into the rocker cover because there were only 2 holding it on because it was just mock-up fitted. Now I've got all the bolts in it, which is dope. I also put all the V-bands onto the exhaust and did them up tight, just so that that's all good for when we do the first start. And I put the oil drain on. The oil feed is now on, so that just goes to a T down on the block, as you guys saw. And the fuel lines, at the moment, good to go. Obviously I'm going to tidy them up in cable time or put some brackets to hold them nicely together and have it super tidy. I've got the brake master back on now. That's all good to go. So that's yeah, which I'm stoked about because it was a big thing that needed to happen. So slowly but surely we're making our way through this big job that we have going on. But things are happening. This is going to be one tidy ass engine bay once it's all together. I'm freaking pumped. But so now loom time, and then we'll terminate it. And then we shouldn't be too far from testing spark and making sure that all of our timing settings in the ECU are right, but we'll run you guys through that. And then it should be almost first start time maybe. So I feel like this is probably a long video, but it's definitely worth it. So, you know, hopefully at the end of this video you guys see the thumbnail and it says like first start, or it's gonna say like massive fail. One of the two, you know, it's all good. Still panning.
I don't know how fast to go.
Clearly it's not me behind the camera, it was at the moment. What's up? Alright guys, so I'm in the boot because, not just because I enjoy being in here, but we've run a power wire to the back of the boot because we're putting a relay into the fuel pump. I mean, I don't know if it's necessary, but it's definitely highly recommended, right? When you're running
You can always
power.
upgrade if you do it.
Yeah, so we have a look at this thick boy wire. We've sheathed it nicely in the boot. We're going to run some P-clips, and then it's in here. We've got our relay, and then we're going to run all the wires to the fuel pump wires, so I'm pretty excited.
Fused relay.
How good's the focus on that camera? There you go, it's a fused relay, you can see it now.
30 amp.
Yeah, so we're basically doing everything that we think we'll need to do in the future now. And then that way, you know, ticking all the boxes. So I'm pumped.
Upgrade to 400 kilowatts later.
Exactly. Oh man, this thing doesn't need all that power, does it? But
No, it does not.
it doesn't mean we're not going to make that much power, so yeah, pumped. Alright, it's another late night here at the factory, working on the beautiful Z. I'll tell you what, this is no easy feat, and I can't imagine where we'll be if we didn't have Quana with us. It's taken 2 full days. 2 full enjoyable days, that's for sure, and we've kind of haven't been rushing. We've tried to do this, you know, just chill out and enjoy the process, but we're finally getting to the finishing stages of the loom, so now we're doing the injector side of things, which is fantastic. We've done everything else, so a couple of things we're just wired up at the moment in a chill way, like the TPS, because we're just going to make sure the signal's all good from it. We're using a BMW coil at the moment, so that's just kind of chill wired at the moment so that we can make sure the car runs, and then we'll switch it over to the LS coil when I go grab one this week. so just a couple of things that we're going to redo once it's confirmed running. But for the most part, we're nearly there. Yeah, we had to put a resistor in, so we've got our ballast resistor here because we're in low impedance injectors and we're using a batch fire sequence, which means something to do with the ohmage of the injectors. They're too low for the ECU, and that's not a good thing because we don't want to blow the ECU up. So we'll put the stock resistor in from the old ECU setup. So it kind of came in handy in the end, which is cool. But yeah, I don't know. We're pretty good, aren't we?
Yep.
How's
Done.
I've put him through every kind of stress doing this. And now he has to go do it to his SR as well when he gets a Haltech.
When I put the Haltech in.
That's, we'll leave that for another day though. I literally last night went to bed and dreamt of wiring the Datsun. It was not fun. And I woke up and I was like, what the hell? Just because like, it just mucks with your brain so much, all of this, the whole process, but it's been fun. I just can't wait to finally crank it over and hear this thing go. And while we've been working on the Z, we've been watching Wang in Midnight, which is a movie about the Devil Z, which is super cool. It's like another fun part of the show at the moment. Was a good part. Suss this out. It's so freaking good. It's all about a guy who finds a Z in a wrecking yard, and then he takes it on the Wang, which is like a road, a highway in Japan where they race, and it's like real fast. And yeah, it's pretty rad, so it's given us a bit of inspiration while we're working on the Devil Z to watch the movie about the Devil Z, which is sick. But next up, you guys are going to see this thing hopefully turning over and firing up. So check back in a second for an update. The magic of YouTube. Alright, another update. It is after midnight right now. We've been going 4 hours. So we got to the stage where we basically have turned the ignition on for the first time, which was hella scary. I didn't get it on film because we were watching for leaks and all that stuff. And our fuel system, it worked well. So the ECU triggered the relay that we put in the boot. I'll show you guys that quickly. And the fuel pump primed. We've got to make sure everything works first before finalizing it. And then we got fuel pressure and that was all good. And then we tried to get spark, and at the moment we're trying to use a BMW single BMW coil, and I think it's just not agreeing with something within the Haltech or within the Haltech software. Either that or we're missing a setting in the Haltech software just to create the spark. So the engine turns over awesome, everything seems pretty good, but we're all just super tired. We want to go to bed. Yeah. It's not good like working on cars with your brain fried. Look, Woz is asleep. So we're going to call it a night here. We're going to come back with a fresh brain. Honestly, I'm just super pumped with the progress that we've made with this thing. Like, it's going to be awesome. Massive shout out to Quino, because without him we'd be, I don't even know, this thing would probably be on fire, to be honest. So yeah, we're good, but we're going to come back and obviously in the same video you guys will see it, but we're going to get this thing started. So we'll figure out our spark woes and yeah, we'll be good. So see you guys whenever we see you in the second half of this video. Bye. We are back working another late night on our beautiful Datsun. So progress has been made. As you can see, I've done a couple of jobs. As you guys saw in that little montage, I got the throttle body on. We got the air intake temperature sensor and the intercooler piping. This is all now mounted properly, the intercooler piping, although please disregard the clamps that I'm using. They're just random ones that I had here at the shop. I'll replace them with brand new ones. Also got the cold side in as well, and we have an LS coil in the car now. So we went ahead, Quino went and got me a bunch of LS coils, so we have spares. Thank you, bro, you're a fucking legend. Shouldn't swear on the vlog, but you know how it is. I'm stoked. So we have the LS coil in, and right now we're trying to get spark, but what we do have is injector pulse. So you spin the dizzy, and the injectors are firing, which is freaking awesome. So that is amazing. That's a very good sign. It means that our sensor inside, our reluctor sensor inside the dizzy, is working and firing the injectors as they should, but we're still not getting spark, which may be just an issue because we've wired the car, you know, and we did it late nights. We may have got maybe a wire wrong, or there's a setting wrong in the ECU, one or the other. So basically, once we figure that out, we should have spark, and then we should actually be able to crank and start the car, which is like huge. So I'm feeling confident, slowly, kind of. Quana's trying to figure out in his brain whether he accidentally did something wrong or not. Okay, so after everything that we've done throughout this video, unfortunately we made a massive rookie mistake. The Haltech Elite 550 is now out of the car. We're going to be sending it back to Haltech because we have blown the ignition driver on the ignition number 1 wire, which is what basically drives the spark in the car. So we made a massive mistake in that we didn't have an LS coil when we were trying to get spark out of the car the first time. We didn't have an LS coil available, so we used a BMW coil instead, thinking that these were internally ignited, but they're not. No BMW coil is internally ignited. The igniters are actually in the BMW ECU. Now I should know that, but for some reason I didn't. And so because we wired up a BMW coil to test for spark, and it didn't have the internal igniter, we blew the ignition driver in the Haltech. Rookie mistake. So I guess you live and you learn, but the good news is that all the wiring and everything is correct on the engine. All the settings we had in the ECU are correct as well. So we're sending this back to Haltech. Luckily Haltech are amazing. Awesome customer service. I cannot recommend these guys enough. They've been amazing throughout the whole process. Sending this back, they're going to put a new ignition driver in it, send it back to me. It's probably going to cost a couple $100, so that's just an expensive, but not really too expensive, but still an expensive lesson for me to learn nonetheless. And that's where we're going to have to leave this video until we get the ECU back. It is what it is. I'm a bit gutted, but at the same time, at least we know what the problem is. We'll have the ECU back probably next week. We can chuck it in the car and we can do the first start, which is something you guys can really look forward to. Really stoked with the progress we made and everything that I learnt throughout this process. I'm really lucky that Quana came and helped us out, because I thought that me and Woz were going to wire this up ourselves, and after seeing what Quana did, I now realise that we probably would not have gotten it done by ourselves, and if we did, it probably wouldn't have been a very good job done. So really happy so far. Once we get the ECU back, we can tidy up all this wiring and have everything kind of all super neat and tidy and have it all look super beautiful, and then we can go ahead and do the bodywork and paint the car. But until then, we're gonna have to wait. And just quickly before we end this video, I'll give you guys an update on the E36. So I pulled out the subframe because obviously we wrecked the diff mount last time. So this has all been welded up. Boom, look at that. Nice thick welds all the way around and around the back as well. So that's never going to come off. And we also chucked some welds around the rest of the weak points on the subframe. And then also what I did was the bushes that we had in the subframe had like bushing up top and down the bottom as well. So what we did was just cut the top of the bushes off, and that raised the subframe heaps, basically as much as we can afford to raise it before everything starts hitting the body and being complicated. And that's going to mean that the angle of our axles is going to be heaps better. We're going to have less issues with breaking axles, which is really, really awesome. So that's all done, and now the car can go back together. I'm super pumped about that. Oh, and one other quick thing we did as well is they usually have bolts that go through here. Well, they do have bolts that go through here that hold the arms, the camber arms in, and then on the back side they have these like nut things that you have to hold up and do up at the same time. It's really complicated and a pain in the ass to do if you're by yourself. So what we did was put the bolts through, put these in, did it up, and then welded these here. So now we don't ever have to worry about that ever again, which is really nice. So now we can just put the bolt in. So just wee improvements on the car to make life heaps easier, and yeah, we should be ready for Vic Drift round 1 next weekend, which is awesome. I'll also be taking the E36 back to the dyno at Dr. Drift next week, so you guys can look forward to that video as well. So plenty happening on the channel, but I really wanted to get this video out to you guys sooner, but I wanted to have the first start of this video, and that's why there was a bit of a delay. But nonetheless, thank you guys so much for watching and supporting as you do. Hit that like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're very close to 20k, which is just insane. So thank you guys very much, but I'll see you in the next video. Until then, peace!